Okay, well, yes, it's International Women's Day, and on two fronts. Well, yes, as you might have seen, Chioma Okwagu joins us from our Abuja studio. She's the program officer for Oxfam. Morning, she will be joining us from Abuja. But here we have Adobe Eboka, who is the executive program manager for Legal Defense and Assistant Project Leader. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you.
All right, let's start off with Chioma, who is in Abuja. And yeah, International Women's Day. First and foremost, tell us, what is this, the essence of, because year in, year out, this day comes and goes. What's the essence of this one?
Hello. Good morning, viewers. Okay. The essence of International Women's Day, if I hear you correctly, you're asking year in, year out, we celebrate International Women's Day. What really is the essence? And I tell you, it is very significant. International Women's Day, even as it dates back in 1975-77, when the United Nations adopted it to celebrate women's achievements, political achievements, economic achievements, all the achievements of the women in the past, in present, and even women in hidden sectors, in hidden spaces, doing great things, you know, empowering themselves, helping family economy to grow. We celebrate all these achievements every year. And really, it is an opportunity to advocate for change. All the gender parities, all the gaps, all the obstacles that are hindering women in taking up their spaces and in realizing their potentials in the society. We use International Women's Day as a platform, as an opportunity to advocate even to governments and organizations to give women the space to realize their potentials. The essence, again, of International Women's Day is to, you know, put women on the spotlight, to tell them that they are not different from any other person. I mean, they have to live within what the society has and express themselves, take up responsibilities, take up roles, leadership roles, and, you know, contribute to the development of the country. Yeah.
All right, so from the advocacy that you've carried out over time, do you think that there's some improvement so far from what you've been doing? And women getting the attention and stopping all of those discrimination which you're kicking against?
Yeah, advocacy, like we usually say, is never ending. We'll continue to advocate. You don't take it by force, but you change people's mindsets. You engage at the highest level, at whatever level. You engage with people, let them understand. Over time in Nigeria, it wasn't like we have it today. We've gone beyond so many obstacles, and currently we are very excited and enthusiastic about the VAP bill that just passed the second reading. And all these advocacy has achieved, and we'll continue to engage our legislators, we continue to sensitize the populace, we continue to engage citizens on the rights of women as normal, as a general human right, and we'll continue to engage and advocate so that the bills that are gender related, that affect women's interests, will get into our law and help women realize their potentials in the society.
Let me come to Debbie. From what perspective are you looking at the celebration or commemorating International Women's Day today?
Okay, the theme for this year's International Women's Day is actually a promise is a promise, time to end violence against women. So for us, it's actually time to call the government to action, to remind them of their promises they've made, both internationally, regionally, and locally, that had to do with women's rights, laws, and make sure that it's fully implemented.
I was speaking about women's rights because I think in some release or so I stumbled across it. You talked about discrimination, violence. These are all factored in our constitution, the 1999 constitution. So why should that be separated from what already is provided for in our laws?
You know, generally we talk about discrimination, we talk about violence in the general perspective, but we realize that from our cultural orientation, from our country, Nigeria, and in Africa as a whole and globally, we realize that women most times are the ones that bear the most burden when it comes to issues of discrimination and violence. Because talk about economic unrest, talk about the crisis we've had in the region, talk about election violence, most times it's the women that bear most of the burden. So you see that when we talk about women specifically, is because there is a need to have a more embracing, something more, how am I going to put it, something more detailed for women, because there's need for that. You see that in every other country in the world, women actually suffer more, so there's need for that.
In your own advocacy, I mean, you say that you're in some form of advocacy against violence against women. Have you not found that most times it's not the law, but it would seem that cultural norms oftentimes, prevent women from seeking or actualizing their rights?
Okay, well, yes, but we move from a stage. We move from one stage to the other. If there are laws, first we talk about the laws, which we talk about the laws, and we talk about the implementation of the law.
Do we lack laws now?
Yes, we do, because there is a bill in the National Assembly which you just talked about, which has to do with Violence Against Persons Prohibition Bill. It's actually the oldest bill as far as the bills are in the House of Assembly, in the National Assembly after the FOI Act. That bill has been there, and there's need for that bill to be passed. Beyond that bill, you talk about at the local level, in the states, you also have other domestic violence bills before the various Houses of Assembly.
But it doesn't mention anything specifically about women.
Yes, because people are beginning to talk about, why are the women always talking about themselves? When you talk about gender, it cuts across both women. It's women and men we're talking about. But specifically here, we're talking about women today. That's why you see us paying more attention to the women.
Chioma, I think this next question is for you. We're celebrating International Women's Day, but don't you think that sometimes, issues of segregating or setting aside a day just for women, doesn't it sometimes affect mainstreaming women after all? Because at some point, for instance, Nigeria is the only, maybe not the only place, but one of the very few countries where you have a women's ministry. I mean, things that are just meant for women specifically. Does it not affect gender mainstreaming?
It doesn't affect gender mainstreaming. Actually, Nigeria is not the only country that has a Ministry of Women Affairs. The essence of the ministry is been identified as the national gender machinery that will advocate for gender mainstreaming at that highest level of the government. And for us in Nigeria, really, it's not just the ministry alone, but the ministry stands in the gap to take it across all the other government sectors, like in the health sector, in the agri sector, all other sectors. And you see that there are peculiar gender issues that have been missed out in policies in these ministries. So the Ministry of Women Affairs is there to see that all these gaps are identified in all those sectors and are taken into consideration when policies are being made, when budgets are being passed.